It was a bright morning filled with hope and nervous excitement. Aaliyah Johnson stood in front of a small mirror in her room, carefully fixing her hair for what she believed was the most important day of her life. Her heart was beating fast, not from fear but from the thrill of finally getting a chance to change her life. For weeks she had been preparing for this moment, a job interview at one of the biggest companies in the city. If she got the job, it wouldn't just mean success for her, but also stability for her family who had struggled for years to make ends meet. Aaliyah lived with her mother and little brother in a small apartment on the edge of town. Money was always tight, and every month was a battle between paying rent and buying groceries. Her mother worked long hours as a nurse's assistant, often coming home tired and exhausted. Aaliyah had always wanted to do something that would make her proud, something that could lift the weight off her mother's shoulders. This job interview was her golden chance. She had studied hard, practiced answers to possible questions, and even watched videos on how to stay confident during interviews. Every detail mattered, the way she dressed, her tone of voice, and even her smile. She had borrowed a neat white blouse from her neighbor and ironed it the night before. Her shoes were a little worn out, but she polished them until they shined. She looked at herself one last time in the mirror and whispered softly, "You can do this." Before leaving, she peeked into the next room where her mother was getting ready for work. "Good luck, baby," her mother said with a warm smile, hiding her tired eyes. "Remember, no matter what happens, I'm proud of you." Those words gave Aaliyah courage. She hugged her mother tightly, grabbed her folder with her resume, and stepped out the door with determination in her step. The morning air was cool and the city was just waking up. Aaliyah walked quickly down the street, her mind full of thoughts about how the interview might go. She imagined herself sitting in a modern office, confidently answering questions, shaking hands with the hiring manager, and then calling her mother to share the good news. The thought made her smile. For a moment, everything seemed possible, but deep down there was also a small voice of worry. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she made a mistake? What if they didn't like her? She pushed those thoughts away and reminded herself that she had worked hard for this. She wasn't just anyone. She was someone who never gave up no matter how tough life got. As she reached the bus stop, she checked her watch. She still had plenty of time. The company was about a 30-minute bus ride away, and she had planned to arrive early. While waiting, she opened her notebook one last time and read over her notes. She had written down positive words to motivate herself. Be calm. Be confident. You deserve this. A few minutes later, the bus arrived. Aaliyah found a seat near the window and watched the world go by as the city slowly came alive. People rushed to work. Street vendors set up their stalls and the morning sun touched the tops of tall buildings. She imagined herself among those office workers someday, walking proudly with her head held high. When the bus stopped near downtown, Aaliyah stepped off, holding her folder close to her chest. The company building wasn't far, a tall glass tower that stood out among the rest. She took a deep breath as she started walking toward it. Each step felt like a step closer to her dreams. She could already picture herself walking through those shiny glass doors, introducing herself and leaving a strong impression. But as she turned the corner near a grocery store, something unexpected caught her attention. An elderly man was struggling with 2 heavy bags full of groceries. One of the bags ripped open and apples rolled across the sidewalk. People passed by without stopping, each too busy with their own day. Aaliyah slowed down for a moment. Her eyes moved between the man and her watch. She still had some time, but not much. Her heart told her to help him, but her mind reminded her of how important this day was. If she stopped, she might be late. If she didn't, she would carry the guilt of ignoring someone in need. She took a deep breath, her chest tightening as she watched the man bend down slowly, struggling to pick up the apples. Something inside her couldn't ignore it any longer. Without thinking twice, she walked toward him. "Excuse me, sir, let me help you," she said kindly, crouching down to gather the fallen fruit. The old man looked up, surprised but grateful. "Thank you, dear," he said softly. His voice was gentle but weak and his hands trembled slightly. Aaliyah smiled and helped him collect the groceries. In that moment, she wasn't thinking about the interview anymore. She wasn't thinking about time or success. All she felt was the quiet satisfaction of doing something good for another human being. She didn't know that this small act of kindness would soon change her life in a way she could never have imagined. As they finished picking up the groceries, the man smiled and thanked her again. "You've got a good heart," he said. Aaliyah simply smiled and nodded. unaware that the path she had just chosen, compassion over ambition, was leading her towards something far greater than the dream job she thought she was chasing. She hurried away soon after, her pulse quickening. She was running late now, but a part of her felt strangely calm. Deep down, she believed she had done the right thing. And sometimes, the right thing leads us to places we never expect. As Alia hurried down the busy street, the sound of city life surrounded her, honking cars, rushing footsteps, the distant call of a street vendor selling breakfast. She clutched her folder tightly against her chest, her heart still pounding from helping the elderly man. She glanced at her watch and her stomach dropped. She was running late. Panic flashed through her mind. The interview that could change her life was slipping away minute by minute. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about the man she had just helped. His soft thank you echoed in her head. There was something about his gentle smile that made her feel peaceful. She didn't know why, but she felt like their meeting meant something more than just a random act of kindness. As she crossed the road, she whispered to herself, "It's okay. Maybe they'll still take me." The street seemed longer than ever as she tried to catch her breath. She reached the bus stop only to see the bus pulling away. "No, no, no," she said under her breath, waving her hand desperately. But it was too late. The bus disappeared down the road, leaving her standing there, frustrated and helpless. She could take a taxi, but that would cost money she didn't have. For a moment, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. "Don't give up now," she told herself. Her mother's words always echoed in her head whenever things got tough. She quickly decided to walk fast instead. It wasn't too far, just over 20 minutes if she moved quickly. Her heels clicked sharply against the pavement as she walked, weaving through the crowd, her mind full of worry. When she finally reached the building, she stopped in awe. It was even more impressive than she had imagined. Tall, shiny glass windows reflecting the sunlight, and a revolving door that never stopped spinning. People in crisp suits moved in and out confidently, talking on phones, carrying files, and wearing the kind of calm professionalism she dreamed of having one day. Alia checked her reflection in the glass before stepping in. Her hair was slightly out of place, her shoes were scuffed, and a small bead of sweat ran down her forehead. She tried to fix herself quickly, but her heart was racing. Inside the lobby, the air was cool and smelled faintly of coffee and polished floors. Everything felt professional and intimidating. She walked up to the front desk where a neatly dressed receptionist greeted her with a polite smile. "Good morning, may I help you?" "Yes," Alia said, trying to sound calm. "I'm here for the marketing assistant interview with Mr. Raymond. My name is Alia Johnson." The receptionist's smile softened slightly as she checked the schedule on her computer. "Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson," she said gently. "The interview started 30 minutes ago. Mr. Raymond has already moved on to the next candidate." Alia felt her chest tighten. "Please, I was on my way here, but something happened." "I understand," the receptionist interrupted softly. "But the schedule is very tight today. I can take your resume and pass it along to the team." For a few seconds, Alia stood frozen. Her dream opportunity was fading right in front of her eyes. She tried to smile and handed over her folder. "Thank you," she whispered, forcing her voice to stay steady. Then with slow steps she turned away and walked out of the building. Outside, the city noise seemed louder than before. The sunlight felt harsh. She sat on a bench nearby and stared down at her hands. The same hands that had helped a stranger now trembled slightly with disappointment. She felt the weight of everything, her efforts, her hope, her dreams, slipping away. But as she sat there, something inside her refused to let her break. She closed her eyes and remembered the old man's face, his soft, grateful smile, the way he had looked at her as if he saw something special. That small memory gave her comfort. Maybe she had missed her interview, but she hadn't lost her humanity. A group of people passed by, chatting happily, but Alia stayed still, lost in thought. "Maybe it wasn't meant to be," she murmured softly. But then another thought came, or maybe something better is waiting for me. He didn't know it yet, but her words were truer than she could ever imagine. Fate was already working behind the scenes, quietly turning her act of kindness into something extraordinary. Somewhere in that same tall building, a man she had helped just hours ago was remembering her face too, and smiling to himself. For Alia, this day seemed like a failure. But for destiny, it was only the beginning of something beautiful. Alia walked home slowly, her steps heavy with disappointment. The city around her buzzed with life. People rushing to work, cars honking, children laughing. But to her, it all felt distant and dull. The job interview she had dreamed about for weeks was gone, just like that. Every second she spent helping the old man now replayed in her mind. She tried to remind herself she did the right thing, but the sting of loss still hurt deeply. As she reached the bus stop, she sat down and sighed, staring at the folder still clutched in her hands. Inside were her neatly printed resumes, certificates, and letters of recommendation, papers that now felt meaningless. She thought about her mother's hopeful face that morning, how proud she had looked. The thought made Alia's chest tighten. What will I even tell her? She whispered softly. The bus ride home was quiet. She sat near the window watching the city roll past, tall buildings fading into smaller streets, then into the familiar corners of her neighborhood. Children were playing near the small park and an old woman was sweeping her porch. Alia watched it all, lost in her thoughts. Her dream job had slipped away, but somewhere inside, she still believed that she had done the right thing. When she got home, her mother was in the kitchen, humming softly while cooking dinner. The smell of rice and chicken filled the small apartment. Alia hesitated at the door, trying to think of how to explain what happened. Her mother turned around and smiled. You're home early. How did it go? She asked. Alia forced a small smile and sat down. It didn't go as planned, Mama. I helped an old man who needed me and I missed the interview. Her mother paused, then wiped her hands on a towel and came closer. You missed it? She asked softly, not in anger but in surprise. Alia nodded, her eyes welling up. I know it sounds foolish, but I couldn't just walk away. He was struggling and no one else helped him. Her mother looked at her for a long moment, then smiled gently. You did the right thing, baby. Jobs will come and go, but what you did today shows who you are. You helped someone without expecting anything in return. That's worth more than any interview. Those words comforted Alia more than she expected. They didn't erase her disappointment, but they reminded her that she still had her mother's pride and love. That night, as she lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling, thinking about how strange life could be. Maybe missing the interview wasn't the end of her story. Maybe it was the beginning of something else. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the thin curtains. Alia woke up feeling calmer, though her heart still ached a little. She made coffee and opened her laptop to check for new job listings. She told herself she wouldn't give up, not after coming this far. As she scrolled through the pages, her phone suddenly rang. She glanced at the screen. The number was unfamiliar, from the same area as the company she had interviewed for. Her heartbeat quickened. Hello? She answered, her voice uncertain. Good morning, is this Alia Johnson? A woman's voice asked politely. Yes, it is, Alia replied, sitting up straighter. This is Karen from Raymond Industries. The CEO would like to meet you personally this afternoon. Can you come to our office at 3 p.m.? Alia froze for a second, unsure if she heard correctly. The CEO? She repeated in disbelief. Yes, the woman replied with a friendly tone. He specifically requested to see you. For a moment, Alia couldn't speak. Her mind raced back to the previous day, to the man with the grocery bags, his warm smile and kind voice. Could it be? No, that was impossible, she thought. But something deep inside whispered that this was no coincidence. I'll be there, she finally said, her voice trembling slightly. Thank you so much. When she hung up, she sat silently for a moment, staring at her phone in shock. A strange mix of excitement and confusion filled her chest. Why would the CEO want to meet her? Especially after she missed her interview. Her mother noticed her expression and asked, What happened, Alia? They called me back, Alia said, smiling in disbelief. The CEO himself wants to see me. Her mother's face lit up with surprise and joy. See, I told you good things come back around. God always has a plan even when we can't see it. Alia laughed nervously and nodded. I guess you were right. For the next few hours, she prepared again, carefully choosing her clothes, redoing her hair, and practicing how to stay calm. But this time it felt different. The pressure was gone. She wasn't going there desperate to impress anymore. She was going with honesty, with kindness, with the same heart that made her help a stranger on the street. As the clock neared 3 p.m., she stood in front of the company's tall building again, this time with quiet confidence. She didn't know what awaited her inside, but something told her that fate was finally revealing its true plan. Little did she know, Behind those glass doors waited not just an interview, but the beginning of a story that would change her life forever. When Aaliyah stepped out of the elevator that day, her heart was pounding louder than it ever had before. The receptionist had smiled at her with a knowing look, as if she already understood something Aaliyah didn't. "You can go right in," she had said, gesturing toward the large glass door at the end of the hallway. Aaliyah took a deep breath, straightened her blouse, and began walking. Each step echoed softly on the marble floor, and for a brief second she wondered if she was dreaming. Just a day ago, she was sitting on that same park bench, feeling like a failure. And now the CEO himself wanted to meet her? It didn't make sense. Maybe they felt bad for her. Maybe it was a mistake. Her thoughts tangled together, creating a storm of doubt inside her head. But when she reached the door, she quietly told herself, whatever this is, face it with grace. She knocked gently and a deep, calm voice called out, "Come in." When Aaliyah entered, she froze in her tracks. Seated behind a large wooden desk, dressed neatly in a dark blue suit, was the same elderly man she had helped just a day earlier, the one with the torn grocery bag and the warm smile. For a second, time seemed to stop. The memories of that morning flashed before her eyes, the apples rolling on the street, his kind eyes and her decision to stay and help him. "You?" she whispered under her breath, still in disbelief. The man smiled softly, leaning back in his chair. "Yes, it's me," he said. "And it's nice to finally meet you properly, Miss Johnson." Aaliyah's heart raced. She didn't know whether to apologize, laugh, or cry. I didn't know," she stammered. "I'm so sorry I missed the interview. I never meant to." He raised a hand gently to stop her. "No need to apologize," he said kindly. "If anything, you showed me something that no resume ever could." Aaliyah blinked in confusion. "I don't understand." The man smiled, his eyes kind but sharp with wisdom. "Yesterday, when you stopped to help me, you didn't know who I was. You didn't do it to impress anyone. You did it because you have a good heart. In a world where everyone is in a hurry to get somewhere, you chose compassion over ambition. That tells me more about your character than any interview could." Aaliyah stood there speechless. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The CEO she was supposed to meet had been the very man she helped, and her missed opportunity had turned into something far greater. Her mind spun, trying to grasp how fate had arranged it all so perfectly. He continued, "I was actually out that morning observing the world, something I like to do from time to time. I've been in business for over 40 years, and I've learned that true leaders aren't just skilled, they're kind. They know how to see people. You, my dear, saw me when no one else did." Aaliyah felt her eyes sting with tears. "I just did what anyone should do," she said softly. He chuckled lightly. "You'd be surprised how many people walked by before you came along." For a moment, silence filled the room. The sunlight streaming through the window painted soft gold on the floor. It felt unreal, as if life had paused to show her something extraordinary. Finally, the CEO stood up and walked toward her, his hands clasped behind his back. "You see, Aaliyah," he said, "interviews tell me what a person can do, but actions show me who they truly are. You didn't just help an old man. You showed me what kind of person you are under pressure when no one is watching." He stopped in front of her and smiled. "And that's exactly the kind of person I want in my company." Aaliyah's eyes widened. "Are you saying—" He nodded slowly. "Yes, I'm offering you the job and not the one you applied for. I believe you're capable of much more. I want you to join my mentorship program. You'll be working directly under me." For a moment, Aaliyah forgot how to breathe. Everything around her blurred. The fancy office, the soft hum of the air conditioner, the city skyline visible through the window. Her heart swelled with joy and disbelief. I don't know what to say," she whispered. The man smiled kindly. "Just keep being who you are. The rest will fall into place." Tears welled up in her eyes as she nodded, unable to hold them back. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice trembling. "You have no idea how much this means to me." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Actually, I think I do," he said. "I came from nothing too, and I built everything I have by never forgetting where I started, and by believing that good people deserve good chances." Aaliyah smiled through her tears. She realized then that this moment wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was life reminding her that doing the right thing, even when it costs you something, always leads to something better. When she left the office that day, Her heart felt lighter than ever. The world outside seemed brighter, the air fresher. She stopped on the sidewalk for a moment, looked up at the sky, and whispered a small thank you. What she didn't know was that this meeting was only the beginning, the start of a journey that would test her, shape her, and eventually make her stronger than she ever imagined. But in that moment, as the wind brushed against her face, all she felt was peace, the kind that comes when kindness meets destiny. The next morning, Aaliyah woke up before her alarm, her heart still fluttering with disbelief. For a moment, she lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering if everything that had happened the day before was just a dream. The CEO, the same kind old man she had helped on the street, had offered her a job. Not just any job, but a chance to work directly under his mentorship. It felt unreal, like something straight out of a movie. As the morning sunlight slipped through the curtains, she finally smiled. "It's real," she whispered to herself. She got up quickly, her energy brighter than it had been in months. Her mother noticed the sparkle in her eyes when she joined her for breakfast. "You look different today," her mother said with a proud smile. "I feel different," Aaliyah replied. "Like my life is about to change." Her mother reached across the table and took her hand. "You see, I told you, baby. God always sees what's in your heart. You helped that man because it was right, not because you wanted something in return, and look how he blessed you for it." Aaliyah nodded, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. She still couldn't believe how everything had come full circle. That single moment of kindness had opened a door she never even knew existed, but deep down she promised herself that she would prove she deserved this chance. She didn't want the CEO's offer to feel like pity. She wanted to earn it. Later that day, Aaliyah arrived at the company once again, this time as an employee. The security guard who had once barely noticed her now smiled and greeted her by name. She rode the elevator up, clutching her small bag, her heart beating faster with excitement. When the doors opened, a young woman from HR approached her. "Welcome, Aaliyah. Mr. Jameson asked me to bring you to your new desk." As they walked through the open office, Aaliyah looked around. Everything was bright and modern. Glass walls, neat desks, people typing quickly and talking confidently. She felt a mix of pride and nervousness. She wasn't used to places like this, but she was determined to fit in. Her desk was near the window with a beautiful view of the city skyline. On top of it sat a small note with her name written in careful handwriting. She picked it up and smiled when she saw what it said. "Welcome aboard, Aaliyah. Remember, like kindness creates opportunity." "Mr. Jameson," she pressed the note gently against her chest, her eyes stinging with tears. It wasn't just a welcome message. It was a reminder of how far she'd come and why. The first few days were challenging. Aaliyah had to learn everything from scratch: emails, reports, schedules, and meetings. She stayed late every evening asking questions and taking notes. Some of her coworkers admired her dedication, while others whispered behind her back, wondering how someone with no experience got to work so close to the CEO. But Aaliyah didn't let their gossip shake her. She knew the truth. She was there because of who she was, not who she pretended to be. Mr. Jameson often stopped by her desk, sometimes to check on her progress, sometimes just to share advice. He had a calm, patient way of speaking that made everyone listen. One evening, after most of the office had emptied, Mr. Jameson approached her with a file in hand. "Still here?" he asked with a smile. Aaliyah looked up, embarrassed but smiling back. "Just trying to make sure I understand everything. I don't want to let anyone down." He nodded. "That's good, but don't forget, success isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent." He placed the file on her desk. "Here. Tomorrow you'll help me prepare for the community outreach project. I think you'll like this one." "Community outreach?" she asked, curious. "Yes," he said. "We sponsor programs for young people who come from difficult backgrounds. People who need guidance just like I once did, Mornan, just like you once did." Aaliyah's eyes widened. "You're letting me help with that?" He smiled warmly. "I'm not just letting you help. I'm trusting you to take the lead on some parts. I want to see how you work with people. That's where your true strength lies." Aaliyah couldn't believe it. The CEO trusted her with something so meaningful, so close to her heart. "I won't disappoint you," she said softly. The next day she worked tirelessly. She reviewed plans, organized documents, and coordinated with different teams. For the first time, she wasn't just doing a job. She was contributing to something that mattered. That evening, as the office lights dimmed, Aaliyah stood by the window again. Looking out at the glowing city, she thought about how everything had changed in just a few days. From missing a bus and losing hope to finding herself standing in a place she once only dreamed of. But more than anything, she realized that success wasn't about luck. It was about the choices you make when no one's watching, about the quiet decisions that show who you truly are. And somewhere deep inside, she knew this was just the beginning of her journey. Fate hadn't just given her a job. It had given her a purpose, and she was ready to rise to it, one act of kindness at a time. Days passed, and Aaliyah began to settle into her new rhythm at the company. The once nervous young woman now walked through the halls with quiet confidence. Every morning she arrived early, often before anyone else, with a warm smile and a notebook in hand. Her determination did not go unnoticed. Even those who had doubted her at first started to respect her dedication. Mr. Jameson continued to mentor her, but he also began testing her, giving her tasks that required not just hard work but judgment and empathy. One morning he called her into his office. His tone was calm, but his eyes were serious. "Aaliyah," he said, "I want you to lead the upcoming community outreach event. You'll be in charge of organizing the volunteers, managing donations, and speaking on behalf of the company." Her heart skipped a beat. "Me? Sir, I've never led anything like that before." He smiled softly. "You helped a stranger when you didn't have to. Leadership isn't about titles. It's about heart. And you have plenty of that." His words echoed in her mind for the rest of the day. Aaliyah knew this was her chance. Her moment to prove not just her capability but her character. She immediately began working on the project, spending long hours researching, calling community centers, and creating a plan that would genuinely help those in need. As the day of the event approached, Aaliyah found herself juggling dozens of details, arranging food donations, coordinating volunteers, and ensuring transportation for underprivileged families. It wasn't easy. Some plans fell apart at the last minute, vendors canceled, and a few volunteers backed out, but Aaliyah refused to give up. Each time something went wrong, she found a way to fix it. One night, long after everyone else had gone home, she sat at her desk, surrounded by papers and lists, her head resting on her hand. She was exhausted, but her spirit burned bright. Suddenly, she felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. It was Mr. Jameson. "You're still here?" he asked, a mix of concern and admiration in his voice. Aaliyah looked up with tired eyes. "I just want everything to be perfect. These people deserve something beautiful." He smiled, nodding with quiet approval. "You remind me of myself when I was your age," he said softly. "But remember, sometimes the most perfect moments are the ones that happen by accident. Trust yourself, Aaliyah. You're doing more good than you realize." The day of the event arrived, and the community center buzzed with excitement. Children laughed as volunteers handed out food and school supplies. Families smiled as they received care packages filled with essentials. The atmosphere was warm, full of hope and gratitude. Aaliyah stood on the small stage, nervously holding the microphone. She glanced at the crowd, people from all walks of life, including her mother, sitting proudly in the front row. Her heart pounded, but then she saw Mr. Jameson smiling at her from the side. That one look gave her the courage she needed. She began speaking, her voice shaky at first but growing stronger with every word. She spoke about kindness, about how one small act could change a life. How sometimes helping a stranger could lead to something far greater than anyone could imagine. The crowd listened intently, some wiping away tears as she shared her story. Though she never mentioned names, everyone could feel the sincerity behind her words. When she finished, the audience erupted in applause. Mr. Jameson walked onto the stage and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said proudly, "this young woman is the reason today happened. She reminds us all that leadership begins with compassion." Aaliyah's eyes filled with tears as the audience stood, clapping and cheering for her. She looked around at the smiling faces, the children, the parents, the volunteers, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. After the event ended, as the crowd began to leave, Mr. Jameson turned to her and said, "You did it, Aaliyah. You turned an idea into something real, something that changed lives." Aaliyah smiled, her heart overflowing. "I just wanted to make a difference." He nodded. "And you did. Never forget, The world doesn't change because of big gestures, but because of small, honest moments like the one that started all of this. That night, when Aliyah returned home, she stood by her window and looked at the stars. The city lights shimmered below, and for the first time, she truly understood how a single act of kindness could create a ripple that touched countless lives. She realized that fate hadn't just led her to a job or success, and it had given her something much deeper: purpose. And though she had once thought missing that interview was the worst thing that could happen, now she saw it for what it truly was: the beginning of the most beautiful chapter of her life. The weeks after the community event changed everything for Aliyah. Her name began circulating throughout the company, not just as the girl who helped the CEO once, but as the young woman who had turned a simple outreach project into a story that inspired hundreds. Her leadership, her calm under pressure, and her genuine care for people had earned her a quiet respect that no title could bring. Yet Aliyah didn't let it go to her head. Every morning she still arrived early, greeting the security guards and janitors with the same warmth she had on her first day. She worked hard, listened carefully, and treated everyone equally, from the executives in their glass offices to the delivery drivers carrying heavy boxes through the lobby. Her kindness was never for show. It was simply who she was. One afternoon, as Aliyah was finishing a report, she received an unexpected call from Mr. Jameson's assistant. "The CEO would like to see you in the boardroom," the woman said. Aliyah's heart skipped a beat. The boardroom? That was where major meetings were held, places where decisions about the company's future were made. Nervous but curious, she straightened her blazer and made her way there. When she walked in, the room was filled with senior executives, each wearing sharp suits and serious expressions. At the head of the long glass table sat Mr. Jameson. He smiled as she entered and gestured for her to sit beside him. "Aliyah," he began, "do you know why you're here?" She shook her head gently. "No, sir." He leaned back in his chair. "Because of you, our company's community outreach program reached record participation. Donations increased by 50%, and volunteer sign-ups have doubled. You didn't just help the community, you inspired our entire team." A ripple of approval spread around the table. Aliyah's cheeks grew warm and she lowered her eyes humbly. "I just wanted to help," she said softly. "That's exactly why you're special," he replied. "And that's why I've decided something." The room went silent. Mr. Jameson took a deep breath, then continued. "I want to offer you a permanent position here, not as an assistant, but as our new community relations coordinator. You'll oversee all outreach projects and help us build stronger relationships with the people we serve." Aliyah's mouth fell open. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The room blurred for a moment as tears welled in her eyes. "Sir, I don't even know what to say." Mr. Jameson smiled. "Say yes." The executives chuckled softly, and Aliyah finally managed a trembling smile. "Then yes," she whispered. "1,000 times yes." Applause broke out in the room. As she stood there shaking hands and accepting congratulations, a single thought kept echoing in her mind. This is what purpose feels like. After the meeting, Mr. Jameson asked her to stay back for a moment. Once the others had left, he looked at her with that same gentle expression he'd had the day she helped him on the street. "Aliyah," he said quietly, "you know, the day you helped me, I was having one of the hardest mornings of my life. I'd just come from the hospital. I wasn't in disguise or trying to test anyone. I was just a tired old man who needed help crossing the street. And you, without knowing who I was, stopped everything to lend a hand." Aliyah's eyes widened. I didn't know." He nodded. "That's the beauty of it. You didn't need to know. You acted out of kindness, not gain. That's the kind of heart I want this company to have. That's why I chose you." Aliyah's eyes filled with tears again. "Thank you, Mr. Jameson. I'll never forget this." He smiled warmly. "Just promise me one thing. When you reach the top, don't forget to turn around and lift someone else up the same way you once reached out to me." She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I promise." That night when she returned home, she sat quietly with her mother, telling her everything. Her mother listened, tears streaming down her cheeks as she held her daughter's hands. "You see, baby," she said softly, "kindness always comes back. Maybe not right away, but it always finds its way home." Aliyah smiled through her tears. "You were right, Mama. It's like everything happened for a reason." Her mother squeezed her hand. It did. Because people like you remind the world that good hearts still exist. As the night grew quieter, Aaliyah stepped outside. The cool air brushed against her face as she looked up at the stars. For the first time, she felt peace, not just because of her new job or the recognition she'd earned, but because she had finally learned something powerful. Real success isn't about wealth or titles. It's about the lives you touch and the good you leave behind. And as the city lights shimmered in the distance, Aaliyah whispered to herself, one day, I'll do for someone else what Mr. Jameson did for me. Because now she understood, the greatest gift in life wasn't getting help from others. It was becoming the kind of person who could help others rise. Months passed and Aaliyah's life began to blossom in ways she never imagined possible. The once shy girl who had missed her interview was now a confident young woman, whose ideas carried weight in boardrooms. Her office buzzed with life, walls decorated with photos from charity events, handwritten thank you notes from children she'd helped, and newspaper clippings praising her latest projects. But even with all this success, she never lost the gentle humility that made her who she was. Every morning, she still took the same bus to work, greeting the driver with a smile and chatting with the same people she'd known since before everything changed. Her life might have grown bigger, but her heart remained grounded in gratitude. She had learned that the most beautiful part of rising higher was staying true to your roots. One morning as she arrived at work, Mr. Jameson's assistant handed her a letter. He wanted you to have this, she said softly. Aaliyah opened the envelope carefully, curious. Inside was a handwritten note from Mr. Jameson himself. It read, Dear Aaliyah, I'm retiring next month. I've watched you grow not just as a professional but as a leader who leads with empathy. I want you to take over the mentorship program I began years ago. You are the future this company needs. Someone who sees people for who they are, not what they have. Continue leading with kindness and you'll never go wrong. Jameson. Aaliyah's hands trembled as she read the letter. Her chest filled with emotion, gratitude, disbelief, and a quiet sadness. She knew Mr. Jameson was more than a boss. He had become a mentor, a father figure, someone who had seen her potential before she even saw it in herself. When his retirement day arrived, the company hosted a grand farewell. Employees shared memories, laughter, and tears. When it was Aaliyah's turn to speak, the room fell silent. She took a deep breath and looked at the man who had changed her life. Mr. Jameson, she began, her voice trembling with emotion. You taught me something I'll never forget. That real leadership begins with compassion. You showed me that success isn't about climbing over others, but about lifting others up along the way. I'll carry your lessons with me, always. Mr. Jameson smiled, his eyes glistening. I know you will, he said quietly. That's why I'm not worried about the future. It's in good hands. After the ceremony, he handed her a small, folded note, just like the one she had received the day she helped him. She unfolded it slowly, her eyes widening as she read the words written inside. Full circle, from one act of kindness to another. Never forget how it all began. Aaliyah pressed the note to her heart, unable to hold back her tears. It was as if the universe had come full circle, a reminder that one moment of compassion had shaped her entire destiny. In the weeks that followed, Aaliyah officially took over the mentorship program. She started visiting local schools, talking to young students about hope, resilience, and the power of helping others. Her story spread beyond the company. News outlets, podcasts, and magazines began to feature her journey. But Aaliyah always downplayed the fame. It's not about me, she would say. It's about what one small act of kindness can do.